Hey there, I'm Andrew Kobienko, and welcome to the Laugh and Disaster podcast. Today I'm here with a very special guest. This is Amelia Rose from the C'est La Me podcast.
Hello.
And she has a podcast about music and life things. Isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's always interesting to talk about people who have like a music centric podcast as well, because I feel like it's in a way, it's a tightly knit community, you know? I feel like there's not a lot
Mhm,
of podcasts like that out there.
mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, no, go ahead.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I most of my music content is album reviews of Taylor Swift's new releases. So, but yeah, that's actually been those are some of my most popular episodes. I couldn't do an album release podcast like every week, even though it sounds fun. But yeah, it's just been interesting. Like my audience definitely loves music and loves hearing my thoughts on different songs and albums and stuff. So.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. What made you want to start doing album reviews? Because that's always something that I thought was like some really cool, that I would maybe want to get into someday.
Yeah, so I wanted to do an album review. Well, I kind of did an episode where I talked through Evermore or Folklore, when Taylor Swift kind of surprise released that. And so I did that kind of episode, and I didn't call it an album review, but I was just sharing my thoughts on it because I really like Taylor Swift. And then when Evermore came out, I was like, I kind of want to do an album review, but I wasn't sure if my audience would like that because that's pretty different from what I typically do, which is talking about my life, talking about life lessons and all the stuff that I've learned and giving advice on different like subjects, mostly like women-centered stuff. And so I was like, I'm not sure that they would like this, but I kind of want to do it. And I was kind of like, well, it's my podcast. I can do it if I want. So I did it, and it turns out that they really, really enjoyed it. So then I kind of made it a tradition for me to record whenever Taylor Swift releases an album. I listen to the album for the very first time. And I listen to each song, and after each song, I record my reaction to that song. So, like, I started out when she released her re recording of Fearless. I did that. And then I immediately released it. I didn't wait because normally I release episodes on Wednesdays, but they come out like Friday night at midnight. So whenever I'm done recording that, I'll edit it really, really quick. It's pretty minimal editing, and then I'll release it like straight away, and then I'll go to bed. And so those episodes, like people really like hearing those episodes. So I really enjoy doing them. They're pretty different from what I do, but it also is kind of fun. It's like something that I definitely look forward to. I'm like, I can't wait till I get to do another review, and I get to stay up till like 2 a.m. recording a
Yeah,
podcast on it. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, like honestly, that's not surprising though, because I feel like if people are watching for you, if you know what I mean, as
Hmm.
if it's something you enjoy doing, people are gonna like seeing it, And
Yeah.
yeah, so like when you started the podcast, was the like initial idea just to be like a social thing? Yeah, like it would just be you talking about like your life and stuff, and it kind of like changed afterwards. Yeah, no, I get you.
Hmm.
No, that's really cool. And what specifically like would you talk about more? Like what kinds of
Um,
episodes do you have? Like
well, I still do the episodes where I talk about my life, but I've kind of expanded it to also do some listener focused stuff. And like a lot of times I'll be like, okay, I want to do a story time episode. Send me your funny stories. Or I'll say, I want to do a story episode about dating. So send me your funny dating fails or like just any sort of dating stories that you think would be funny on a podcast. So I do those when I can. I do Q&As. I actually just started a YouTube channel, and I release monthly Q&As on there. So um, that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, whenever I can get some music in there, and I do talk about music, within the episodes. Like I was recently just saying, I also have a newsletter where I give my favorite song, podcast, article, and product and recipe of the week. So I do that every week on Fridays, and so I always have a music aspect on that. And so it's just been kind of funny because I was talking about Maisie Peters because for some reason, I just now heard about her. Like, she's been around for a while, but I've
yeah,
just now heard about her, and she's awesome. I've just been like binging her music. So I put one of her songs as like one of my favorite songs of the week, on my newsletter, and then I also kind of talked about her in a podcast episode because I just like couldn't get over it.
yeah. It's really interesting. I feel when you find music that's like not new, but it's new to you, and you're like, how have I not heard this
Hmm.
before? Like this is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and then I was so sad. I looked, I was like, whoa, I saw a YouTube video of her and I was like, she seems fun. And then I listened to a lot of her music, and then I was like, she's on tour right now. I wonder if it's all sold out. And like, of course it was.
Yeah.
Like, of course it's all sold out. But I was just kind of like, oh.
Sad times. Yeah, no, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
That weekly thing is really cool because it's kind of like a one-stop shop for like everything you like. It's like you recommend
Hmm.
everything at once. And
Yeah.
so, what would be like your? I know you like Taylor Swift a lot, but like, what other artists do you like or follow or are into?
Uh, s- so I kind of have a big range of, I don't just stick to one genre.
Yeah,
So I really like, pop, like Taylor Swift, Selena Gomez, Macy Peters, all of that. I really like rock as well. I like Icon for Hire, Paramore, Evanescence. Trying to think of some other bands. I like 21 Pilots. They're kind of all over the place. What other things do I listen to? It's a lot of those artists kind of on repeat.
yeah,
And then that's why I get so excited when I find a new artist that I
yeah.
love, because I'm like, yay, they can join like
It's
my
a new
playlist.
one. You want to join the club?
Yeah.
No, but that's really cool. And would you say like I know pop is your main genre of music, and
Hmm.
so have you like because something that I noticed is that there's been quite a bit of pop punk kind of crossing over into
Yeah,
pop
yeah, yeah.
lately. Do you enjoy that, or do you like them to keep them separate?
Yeah, I do. I enjoy whenever artists like experiment with their sound and whenever two genres kind of come together. Like, I like how they're like, I don't have to choose, kind of how I did with that music review. I was like, I don't really have to choose what episodes I do. I want to keep it consistent so that people know what to expect, but also like, I can do a music review if I want. So I kind of like when artists kind of infuse different genres together. It creates a really cool sound, kind of like 21 Pilots. They had a lot of, like, I remember their first album when it came out. I was like, this is really unique, and I kind
Yeah,
of feel like people have kind of followed suit with that. But it's definitely like super cool whenever artists kind of experiment and all of that. So
yeah. I think 21 Pilots is a good example, and like I feel like there's not a lot of other artists that fall into this where they're like they have like an underground sound if you know, but they're very
yeah,
accessible.
yeah.
Like and that goes into the thing of like the pop punk example I gave as well, which is I feel
Mhm.
like the difference between selling out and actually like doing something different because that's just what you feel like doing.
Yeah, I've followed some bands who I love their sound and I love their lyrics. It seems super unique, super heartfelt and everything. And then slowly they start to sound more generic, and then they start to just kind of sound like not as creative. And
Yeah,
like I get where people go through burnout, but at the same time I'm kind of like, I like their old music better. And I
yeah.
hate to be that person. I hate when people are like, I like the old blah 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 better. But like sometimes you just do, and you're just kind of like, this stinks.
Well, like for me, anyways, I feel like it's just like kind of like because you know the potential, if you know what I mean. Like you know the
Mhm.
quality of music that these people can make. So you like when you
Yeah,
see that the stuff they're making isn't bad, but it's like not as good as the old stuff. You're like, oh wow, like this is cool, but like you could make something like this.
yeah,
Yeah, but I always
yeah.
find that interesting with music listeners as well. And you as someone who's like I feel more into pop music than I am, can you what do you see as like the new trends, if you know what I mean, that are coming in? What you think is going to be like the next big thing in pop? Because I feel like that's something people are always trying to like figure out.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm getting like, what I notice a lot is people kind of hopping on like, um, I wouldn't call it emo. It's not that hardcore, but like
Yeah.
kind of like how Macy Peters does a lot of like sad girl type of music. And they're not really apologizing for it. They're not
Yeah.
really saying like, "Oh, I'm sad and this is a bad thing." They're kind of like, "I'm sad and this is how I feel." I kind of feel like that with like Macy Peters, Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift even just did a sad girl autumn remix of one of her songs. So I kind of feel like as a girl, that's kind of what I'm seeing, of people just being like, I'm sad, and kind of like Julia Michaels, all these people who are just kind of like, this is what I'm feeling, and like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try and like have there be a resolution in the song. It's just kind of like, this is it, and it's okay. So I kind of feel like that lyrically, and probably also the sound, that could be taken in a way of like Billie Eilish did a lot of really like heavy sounds in her songs, but
Yeah.
then Maisie Pierce takes it in a different direction and does a lot of like indie like kind of girl just playing her guitar and talking about that she's like sad and some boy like broke her heart or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how like sonically they would take that, but I do notice that trend a lot. And it
Yeah.
kind of seems like the chill music trend along with that, like Julia Michaels, Macy Peters, they're both pretty like it's pretty toned down, but it's also they're kind of talking about the same thing.
I think that's really important that like we're getting to a point as a society, where like music is getting to that point. Cause I feel
Hmm.
like for the longest point you had like sad songs, but it was always like, how do I fix this? How do I fix being sad? Whereas
Yeah.
like it's cool to see stuff where it's like I'm sad, like that's just like
Hmm.
I'm just sad. Like I'm not trying to
Yeah,
fix that.
I like a mixture of both of those things because if someone keeps saying that they're sad and then that's just how they feel, it like sometimes it gets to you and you're just kind of like,
Oh,
oh
for
my
sure.
gosh, like I'm sad now too.
Yeah,
So I like a mixture of that. I kind of like the sassy songs where it's like I'm sad and it's your fault and I'm calling you out because it's
yeah.
your fault. Um, so yeah.
No, yeah, no, totally. And honestly, I kind of wish that I could like see more of that in like other genres as well, because I feel like a
Hmm.
lot of genres kind of fall into a box, especially when it comes to like mood, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I love metal music, but especially with metal music, I feel like it's very much like aggression is the only like speed. And it's like
Yeah.
I'd like to see some stuff that ventures into other places, and I always find it interesting when bands go that direction. Whenever I see a rock band
Hmm.
do like an acoustic album, for example, that always catches my attention way more than like just another album, because it's like them
Yeah.
venturing into a different place.
Yeah, rock bands are really good at sounding awesome when they do acoustic things. Like,
Yeah,
I remember I really liked Skillet as a band, and they did an acoustic version of their song "Stars," and that was like I love their song. I like just like the full on
yeah,
band version. But that acoustic version, I was like, oh my gosh, this brings like a whole new meaning to the song, and it's
yeah,
like so gorgeous. And also remember in the music video for the acoustic one, they had this really pretty white guitar, and it was like gorgeous.
yeah.
So I was like, wow, y'all are super good sounding awesome acoustic too.
Yeah, no, and I honestly I wish more bands would do that. Like the main one I can
Hmm.
think of, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of them, Rival Sons.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I don't know that I've heard their music.
Okay, like I really like the band, but like I can honestly say I like their acoustic stuff much better than their studio stuff. I just feel like that's where they shine.
Hmm.
It's the
Yeah.
same with the singer Yeba.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's the same for me. Like her studio stuff is all cool, but I feel like when it comes to like an actual live setting, like unfiltered whatever, that's where she shines.
Yeah, I think you can hear more of their raw vocals. Like Flyleaf did a whole acoustic version of one of their albums, and it was a lot more vulnerable and it was more I mean, Lacey Sturm has a great voice and she always sounds like pretty raw.
Yeah.
But she kind of played around with her vocals in the acoustic version, and it was so good to hear because it was like super refreshing take on their own stuff.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, no, it's literally what you were saying. Like, I feel like it just brings a new, I don't know, it's like a new meaning to the song. Because
Hmm.
especially like when it's songs that you've known for a while, like if there's a song that's already out and then they make an acoustic version of that, I feel like
Yeah.
it's really cool. But
Hmm.
do you have any like artists that you've seen emerging recently that you are like interested in?
Um, do, do. I can't really think of any right now, like any new artists. I tend to get kind of stuck in like my favorites and just the
Yeah.
people that I love. I mean, I guess I don't want to keep saying Maisie Peters, but she's the first one that I have discovered in a while, and I
Yeah.
don't know that she's new, but she is experiencing like a lot of success recently, so I'm kind of like she's on my radar. But yeah, I don't want to be like stale, but yeah, she's really cool.
Yeah, no, 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 yeah, no, but like that's the thing, like, I totally get that, like, because I feel like there's a difference between like there's sometimes you'll listen to a song or whatever and you like it, but it's different when you listen to a song and you're like, okay, like I really like this. This is like I'm
Mhm.
downloading their entire discography, like I'm adding it
Yeah.
to Spotify and everything.
Mhm. Yeah, and I
And
love how her stuff just sounds so different. Like, she has a song called "Psycho," and that's pretty pop, pretty, like, upbeat, whatever, and then she has another one that's called "Brooklyn," and it's completely, like, laid back and just awesome. I don't know. It's like both of her songs are awesome. All of her songs are awesome. But yeah, it's just cool that she can pull off the super upbeat pop and then the really chill, laid back
Yeah,
acoustic. So,
yeah. I
and
know
they're on the same album.
something that I find very interesting as well is like I feel like nowadays music is more like going towards a place where there's not so many genre boundaries, if you know what I mean. But yeah, like I feel like if you look back like up to a certain point in like music history, I feel like it was kind of like even separated into like the people who like certain genres, you know?
Hmm.
Like I feel like if you were kind of like it kind of made up your identity. Like, oh, I'm a fan of hip hop, so you only hang out with people
Yeah.
who like hip hop and whatever, you know? And
Yeah.
do you feel the same? I don't know how like do you think it's a good thing?
Um, I don't know. I feel like people should expand their horizons. Like I don't love country music, but I've actually been listening to a lot of Carrie Underwood recently,
Yeah.
which is just kind of weird. But like I feel like especially if themes of music, like lyrically, um, are things that people relate on, it might not matter about the sound as much.
Yeah, for sure. And like I always feel like the way I look at it anyways, whenever someone says like what are you into, you know? I have
Mhm.
like obviously the main stuff that I like, but I always try and find like something that I like in anything I listen to, you know? So
Yeah.
that could be like even like a genre that it's really not my thing. Well, let's say like EDM, for example, right?
Mhm.
Whenever someone shows me a track, I always try to like kind of focus on like this is a cool thing about this, you know? And it could be like a
Yeah.
production element, it could be whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, my brother actually listens to a lot of metal and stuff, and it's a lot of screaming, which is
Yeah.
not my favorite, but you know, whatever. So I always say like, "Oh, I love the guitar in that song," or "The drums are awesome," or whatever. And so now he knows, okay, if there's an especially cool instrumental part of the song, even if they're screaming, I can show it to her because she's not gonna be like, "Oh, it's screaming." She's gonna be like, "That's a cool, element to the song." Like I forget which band it is, but they recently did an orchestral album in London, I think, and it was really, really cool. And he knew that I would like that even
Yeah.
more, so it was super cool. I forget what album he's gonna be like mad at me, but it's okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, especially I feel like when it's like some like a metal band, for example. Like, as much as I love metal, it's not
Hmm.
the most accessible genre, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, especially I feel like a lot of people make that mistake, like where they're trying to get someone into metal, and they'll show them like the heaviest stuff you can find, and it's like
Yeah.
you're just throwing them off the deep end, and like they can't swim. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, it
And
kind of like freaks them out.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's important to have bands as well that are kind of like that transition. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and even like a lot of genres I feel have kind of like an elitism, if you know what I mean. I see it in
Yeah.
like rock. I see it in like hip hop, where it's like there's the certain like, oh, these are like the good stuff, and then you have other bands which are normally more accessible or whatever, or other groups that are more accessible, and people kind of like, I don't know, not shame, but like it's kind of like, oh yeah, like that stuff is for like the new generation, you know, or that stuff is for like
Hmm.
people who aren't really into the genre. But I don't get that
Yeah.
mindset, you know.
Yeah, it's music. It's as long as it's good music, as long as it's, you know, well done. It doesn't have to be full on metal or full on whatever. Like, people like me like kind of hybrid stuff, and also they like the full genre, but I'm not gonna be a snob about it and be like, well, that's not actually pop. That's pop with blah 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 influences.
Yeah,
I'm just like, okay, like, chill.
like so why, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah,
sure.
like, why does it matter?
Yeah, and question for you: do you think, because that's something that I think, anyways? I feel like with like YouTube and Spotify, all like streaming services,
Hmm.
kind of adopting a more video side, if you know what I mean. Even with
Hmm.
podcasts, for example, um, do you think it would be interesting if bands and artists started going more towards the direction of experimenting more with visual arts?
Yeah, I think it could be interesting. It depends. I'm not like a huge fan of music videos. I think they're fine, but
Yeah,
sometimes I like my own interpretation of a song, and then I watched the music video and I was like, but that's not what I was thinking. Like, and now all I can think about is the music video, and it's not like my song anymore.
I think it's kind of like reading the
Um,
book and then watching the movie about the book. Like, it's just
yeah,
not
yeah,
what you
and you're
think.
like, that's not how he looked, or
Yeah.
something like that. But I think that would be great. I've definitely watched some music videos that are a little more experimental. Um, And I kind of think that artists, if they're going to experiment, need to think about their listeners who already know them, but also new people who might not know them. So I feel like a lot of things that people try and do are include Easter eggs or some sort of like kind of inside joke type of thing
Yeah,
in their music
for
videos
like
to be
fans.
special to their fans,
Mm.
which is great. I like that. But if it gets too like Easter eggy or and it gets too like,
Memey.
exclusive, it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like no one else gets it and you're not attracting new people to your art.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, like, cause I feel like in a lot of ways, music videos are kind of like to bridge the gap as well of like people that don't
Yeah.
know this like song, they will get into it because they'll see the video and they'll think like, oh, this is cool and whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I do think it's interesting to kind of relate to your core audience, you know, because I feel like if you're already a fan of like an artist and they start releasing new stuff and they start experimenting more with music videos, that's not really that interesting for you. But if there's a lot of like
Yeah.
references to stuff that you'll like or know, you know, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and, like, people can definitely find new artists from their music videos and from just seeing, like, YouTube recommends and you see a cool, like, thumbnail or something, you're like, "Oh, this looks cool," and then you listen and you watch and you're like, "Whoa, this is amazing," and then all of a sudden you're a fan of them.
yeah, and actually that interesting question. How do you like normally find new music?
A lot of times it's through YouTube or Spotify. Like I have created a bunch of playlists, and so sometimes there are songs down below that it's like Spotify recommends these songs for your playlist. And, depending on the mood of my playlist, it could be a really like, you know, sassy, angry song or something that I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh, wow, this artist has attitude and I really like that." Or it could be a really sad ballad that I'm just like, "This is beautiful." And so I like that. And then also sometimes it is YouTube like music videos. A lot of times though, artists do vlogs and stuff of tour, which I really, really enjoy watching
yeah,
because it's something that I've never experienced. I'm never gonna go on tour with an artist. But it's really cool to see like sound check and behind the
never
scenes
say
and
never.
whatever. Why would I? I have no reason to.
Well, you don't
But,
know.
yeah, I don't know what I'll do in the future, so maybe I
Maybe you'll
will.
do a review of someone's album and they'll be like, "Come on tour with me."
I'll do, like, live show reviews, be like,
Yeah.
"I gotta be there to see this." Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, a lot of times, though, it's kind of a surprising amount of times where I'll see a vlog from an artist or some sort of behind the scenes video of, like, how they created a music video. And I really like that stuff. I love seeing like, I would say Taylor Swift's music videos that I love the most are her home video ones whenever she just puts together a bunch of, like, home videos of her.
Yeah.
And I love watching her behind the scenes of songs, of how she created certain songs. So, like, that's what really gets me. I love seeing the artists as themselves before I like seeing them as an artist.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but if I really like their songs, a lot of times I will go look them up and see, like, do they have any, like, interviews or behind the scenes stuff so I can see, like, who the person is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, yeah, no, that's that because like I feel like that's also like the biggest advent of the internet. You know, it's the transparency that you
Mhm.
have, where like you can
Yeah.
actually see artists as people. You know, you see like what do they do in their daily lives, what is their tour
Mhm.
like. You know, and I feel like that helps you connect with them in a way. You know, because then when you listen to the song, you get it more. I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, you know where they're coming from and, like, what their train of thought is more because 'cause
Yeah.
you've seen them in action just being themselves.
Yeah, no, I pretty much I'd say I'm pretty much the same. Like, and I've gotten some really good recommendations. I feel from like YouTube and stuff of like stuff
Mhm.
that I would never listen to, like really obscure albums from like the '60s or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't get the mentality of like the I was born in the wrong generation kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Because
I'm like, but you
as
get
yeah, you get the best of both worlds, you know? Because as someone who likes older music, like you have access to that, and then you also have access to stuff that you would never get to listen to if you were actually
yeah.
like around at that time.
Yeah, I don't like the being born in the wrong generation. I'm just like,
Yeah,
you're born in this time for a reason. So, like, just I get liking other generations, kind of romanticizing other generations. Like, I get that. Everyone does that at some point
yeah,
in their lives. But just being like irritated because you weren't born in the 40s is like ridiculous.
yeah. Because I mean, for like just starters, like what are you gonna do about it, you know? And
Yeah.
like second of all, I feel like realistically, you don't know what it's like. Like realistically, if you were to like live in the '40s, you would probably hate it.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
a lot of turmoil.
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Um, but yeah, no, I also think that like not just music videos, but like you said, like touring vlogs, whatever, is all good ways for people to connect with their audience and whatever. And what advice would you give to someone who's starting out in like your field, which would be like podcasting, for example? How do you like connect with your audience more?
Kind of the same way you like connecting with other people, you know. Uh, for podcasting, I don't do video podcasts very often, so I know that my face, you know, people don't know what I look like. They know what I sound like, obviously, but I feel like kind of getting the full measure of a person is kind of knowing their whole person. And so I started doing monthly Q&As on YouTube so that I could get my face out there more. And like
Yeah.
Anchor, which is my hosting platform, does video podcasts, so I can do video podcasts on there. And so I've kind of tried to incorporate that more. Um, Pinterest is my like main way of social media because I really like that, and I kind of feel like my audience is more on there than Instagram or Twitter, whatever. So they have these things called idea stories, which is basically like Instagram stories. Except for I think they're there forever. So I've been kind of trying to use Pinterest stories like Instagram stories and showing my face and just being like, hey guys, I have a new episode out, or, you know, hey, I'm taking questions for this. So just being really accessible and visible. That's something that like artists, I think, when they're kind of in a dry area, when they're not creating music, like maybe they're writing their new album or something. And I've seen a lot of like smaller artists and bands say like, "Oh, I wish that I could do something now, but new music isn't out yet." I'm just like, "Well, do a vlog or
Yeah.
do something like create a cover or do something that is content for your audience when you don't actually have like your actual stuff out." So like I try and do that between podcasts. If I ever have anything like I'm recording that day, I'll just take a picture and just say like, "Yeah, really excited to record today" and stuff. Documenting more of like the behind the scenes stuff because I know that that's like I said, that's what gets me. That's what I'm excited about. I like seeing the
Yeah.
behind the scenes of how stuff comes together.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And like also like what you were saying with the like artists when they're like not doing something, I feel like that's when you have time to do that, you know? Because I feel like
Mhm.
for a lot of people who are like musicians and stuff, you kind of have to balance because a lot of people who are musicians have like a second job, you know, because
Yeah.
they're not at the point yet where they can just live off of music. And it's
Mhm.
like if because you're busy all the time, you know, so when your downtime, I feel like is that's the best time to like get yourself out there and do stuff.
Yeah, and, like, I'm a student, and so I'm doing school and stuff, and I do have a job and other things that I'm doing, but in my spare time, I'm always, like, creating episodes and, drafting stuff and planning out stuff and, all of that, so, like, I'm kind of like, "It's doable
Yeah,
if you wanna
if
do
you really
it," you know,
want it, yeah.
it's not like a magic thing where if you do it, everyone's just gonna like, you're gonna have this booming podcast or, you know, music career, but, you know, it's worth the effort. It's nice to see that you're putting in effort, even when you're not releasing things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because that's I feel like that's what you like to see from the people you watch. So the people that watch you are gonna like seeing that, you know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
do you like for podcasts that you watch? Do you normally prefer video podcasts or just audio?
I like audio. I will watch some video podcasts, but a lot of times when I'm listening to podcasts, I'm driving or I am uh kind of multitasking like, you know, if I'm listening to a podcast, sometimes I'm doing laundry or uh
Yeah,
creating stuff for my podcast and drafting episodes and stuff. So sometimes I feel like if I have a YouTube video, like even if I just watch like a normal vlog, I don't watch vlogs when I'm doing something else that I can't give my full attention to the vlog because I feel like I'm gonna miss something. So even if I'm getting the same content, if it's a video, I'm just more like, okay, I have to watch the video, even though I like don't. So I do audio, so I don't have to like be distracted by visuals. So I'm not like, I gotta watch, and then all of a sudden it's an hour, and I've just been watching this podcast, and I
yeah,
haven't gotten anything done.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like I feel like I'm kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. You know,
Mhm.
I don't really listen to audio podcasts. I feel like because when I'm normally like driving or doing whatever, I normally like listen to music instead. You
Yeah.
know, and if I'm like, I'll normally like put a podcast in the background and do something. But I like having the option of like if I'm like, oh, I want to see what's going on right now, I just pop in and
Yeah.
watch the video. Yeah, But I am definitely guilty of what you're saying of like it's been like an hour and I'm still just watching a podcast, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean like yeah, that's the thing. I feel like it's different people and that's why I think it's interesting to like that you can try to connect to different people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah.
do you plan on doing reviews of other artists or
I haven't yet, but honestly, like I would consider it. That would be kind of cool.
yeah.
Especially if I can't figure out, sometimes you don't have ideas of what to record, so it might be kind of like, all right, what's been, inspiring you the most recently musically? Okay, I can talk about that. So, yeah, I would consider it.
Yeah, for sure. And because that's the thing I feel as well with like the kind of like longer video form factor, which
Mhm.
podcasts have, because it's like very different recording like a 5 minute thing compared to like recording like, I don't know, like 20 to like an hour or whatever of like
Yeah. Yeah.
content. So
Mhm.
I feel like if you're doing like an album review, for example, that's always interesting.
Mhm.
Especially
Yeah.
because I feel like your fans care about like what you think about music.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it's been interesting. The album reviews that I've done have been some of like my favorite like times recording. Just because it's so fun. I record it in little spurts. I listen to a song, then record my little like thoughts about that specific song. So track by track, it's really easy to record. In some ways, and then in other ways, since you're up late, if it's a new release, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like gotta go to bed. But yeah,
Yeah.
they've been some of the most fun episodes because I think they're the most out of the ordinary of like what I do normally. So,
Yeah, because I mean, like, it's all about getting out of your comfort zone, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, no, because like, I know this is like different for everyone, but like, I feel like me, anyways, when I'm trying to like accomplish something, if I do something that's different from what I'm trying to do, I'll normally end up like doing something better than if I had done what I originally planned to do.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes you get stuck in a rut too if you do the same thing.
Yeah,
Not over and over. Like, there's variety between my episodes, but if I take something and I do something completely different, it is kind of refreshing of just like, oh wow, like you're going to completely opposite direction, especially like if it's something you want to do. It's really nice just to be like, okay, like normally I care what people think and how the episode does, but if I have a blast doing this, it's not going to be as important to me if the episode like doesn't do well. I'm just like, okay, well I tried it and I had a ton of fun. I might not continue doing this, but I know that it's something that I really like to do.
yeah, because I think that's a very important thing of like, like, do you enjoy what you're making? Because I know me when
Mhm.
I was like younger, I remember I started like YouTube channels and stuff, and I would make like gaming videos, like gameplay videos and stuff. But then I remember I started thinking to myself like, I don't really watch gameplay videos because like I just find them kind of boring. So why would
Mhm.
people watch this?
Yeah.
And I think that's just a good philosophy to have in anything you do. Really, it's like, would you enjoy what you're making? That includes like even if you're
Mhm.
making like fashion, let's say if you're making like clothes or whatever,
Yeah.
would you wear what you're making?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. I was just actually just wrote like a listener profile. I've heard, you should do that right when you start a podcast. Well, it's been like almost 2 years of me podcasting and I haven't done it yet. Um, so I wrote a listener profile and I was just kind of like, okay, they're like me, but they're cooler, you know?
Yeah,
And so I'm just like, cool, now I know like a specific demographic of who I'm talking to. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to make content because I'll know, okay, what are their likes? What are their dislikes? What do they like to listen to? What do they not like to listen to? What's the age range and all of that, their hobbies. So I think that's super helpful, and I do like to make stuff that I would like to listen to. Um, so I think that that's like something that's super helpful when you are trying to create content and especially drafting new stuff. It's just like, would I like to listen to this? Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and do this.
and if you could go back in time and talk to yourself 2 years ago, what's like the one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Get a mic. I used my headphone mic. It was
Yeah,
sound was very interesting, and I used it for an extended period of time. I was like not gonna drop a bunch of money on equipment if I didn't think I was gonna. Well, I didn't not think I was going to continue podcasting, but I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, it might be like super super hard, and then I like don't want to do it anymore or it's taking way too much time. So I just used my headphone mic, which I still got like surprisingly got listeners from that. But once I switched my sound, it got like a lot better. So um I guess I would say, okay, try it for maybe 2 weeks, see how you like it, and then buy a mic,
Yeah.
maybe don't drop it. Or I
Yeah.
could just say like, you're gonna continue with this, buy a mic right off the bat.
Yeah. No, for sure. And but like I'd also say there's also the flip side of like a lot of people like kind of put those like kind of limitations in themselves, like, oh, like I want to do this but I can only do it when I get this microphone, or I want to do this but I can only do it when I do such and such, and
Yeah,
I think you should
my
just
whole
pull the
motto
trigger in a way.
Yeah, my whole motto through the whole process of planning my podcast was like start before you think you're ready, because if you wait till you're ready, you're never gonna start, because that's just me. I'm perpetually in the planning stages. I'm like, it's got to be perfect and I have to release this perfect thing. And my artwork was different and I didn't hate it. I liked it at the time, but I'm like, hey, you actually have the freedom to rebrand and you have the freedom to kind of like find where you're going while you're releasing episodes. Like it's okay. And if I wanted to do, I didn't want it. Well, I do want it to be super successful, but that wasn't really my goal. It was
Yeah,
more
that's
for
not why
me
you were
just
doing
to
it.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I were doing if I was trying to like make an income from my podcast, I probably would wait until I was 100% like ready to go. But since that wasn't really my goal, I was like, you're never going to start it if you don't start it now. So just go ahead and talk into your headphone mic.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm definitely guilty of that, of like no not knowing when to like let go of something and be like, okay, no, like this is ready.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like it's hard to like balance the like where you want to get with it to like just do it, just release it, or just like make it.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I set a date for myself. I was like, "You're May 11th, you are releasing what you got, so
yeah.
do it."
Do it and see what happens. And do you think, did
Mhm.
you like surprise yourself with your journey, let's say, like from there?
Yeah, I actually started out with social media, like with Instagram. I think Instagram was the only thing that I really had. I was a part of like some Facebook groups, but so I kind of like started like an Instagram account, blah blah blah, and kind of got some listeners through there. But then I got to a point where I was like, I hate social media. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And so I deleted it, and I was super surprised I didn't lose any listeners. Like people stayed and like continued and whatever. But yeah, from my launch, I just think it was like really interesting. I got a lot of reviews of people saying like, I really like hearing your stories. And as a solo host, it's really difficult because most of the time you have guests on, normal podcasts typically have interviews with guests. But for me, I really just wanted it to be myself. I wasn't sure how much time I was going to be able to devote. Plus, I did like a lot of solo podcasts. Um, and so it's like super gratifying to get listeners who are there just for you. And like if you have a guest, that's great. But a lot of times they just really like to hear your stories and like hear your take on things, which is like something that I didn't expect. But I guess I should have since it was a solo podcast.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really think, oh, people are gonna really like what I have to say. I'm just like, I just wanna start this thing. And then they eventually like were like, yeah, we love it. I was kind of like, oh, this is surprising.
Yeah. No, yeah, but that's awesome. Because like I feel like it's very challenging, especially like to start out like a solo podcast, because
Mhm.
I feel like when there's two people, you kind of rely on that like back and forth kind of thing.
Yeah,
But when it's
yeah.
just you, it's just you. There's nothing there.
Yeah, sometimes I mean, beginning I was kind of like rambling a little bit and I was trying to figure out how to edit it and whatever. But once I kind of found my groove, it just got into like this routine of like, okay, I start out talking about my week. And that is kind of something I can't batch record as easily because I start out pretty much every episode talking about what happened in my week. And if I record beforehand, they have no clue. And then I feel like I've gone for so long without even updating them on like my life, which they like. So it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. I do record every week. But it's just kind of interesting because from my reviews, I kind of figured out what do they like. And then I kind of emphasized that more. And then I got more people who like the same thing. So I was like, okay, I need to pay attention to what episodes do well, what segments they like, and kind of build your show from there.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like, especially in a solo podcast, the people who are watching for you. Like you're the
Hmm.
you're the product you're selling, basically.
Hmm. Yeah.
because like I feel like if people are devoting their time to something, it's because you're giving them something in return. If you're a
Mhm.
musician, it's because people like your music. If you're a comedian, it's because people find you funny. If it's a
Yeah.
solo podcast, people like you for who you are. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, I totally get that. So like every week you have to record it, and like you can't like plan ahead, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, the only time I ever batch recorded anything was I did this thing in December called Podmas, which I thought that I made up myself, but turns out like there are like a couple of podcasts out there who have done it. But it's really not a big thing, but it's kind of like Vlogmas for YouTube. So I did a podcast episode every day, and that was just going to be a lot to do, like every single day. So I did kind of batch record, and then there were some episodes. I did some episodes that were like naming my favorite winter products or something like that. And that was less of like a personal thing, but it was like my recommendations. And then I kind of staggered like the really personal episodes so that I could kind of use it as like a big catch up of like what's been going on, in my life. So that way I could kind of batch record. But no, I think pretty much every week I record an episode so that I can say like what's been going on. And that's kind of funny when I have guest episodes. I feel like it's been forever since I've caught up with people because I don't usually do the whole like what's been going on in my life before the guest episode. I just do a really short intro, just like, hey, so introducing my guest, blah, 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 and then we get into the interview. So going 2 weeks without saying, like, what's been going on in my life, it feels like forever. I always come back from those episodes to be like, guys, I have not talked to you in forever. I actually have, but it doesn't feel like it.
yeah,
So, yeah.
no, for sure. And like, because you said before about like when you decided like to do rebranding and stuff, did you like come up with like your visual style, if you know what I mean? Because you have a very distinct visual style, and it's really cool, I think. And like, especially like even the name of the podcast is really cool. But
Yeah, thank
how'd you come up with like what it was gonna be?
I was actually thinking about what's more unique to me and like what I like. And so my first design, it was mostly cover art stuff. So my first design was like pink and gray, which I do like that combination. It's good. But I just noticed that a lot of like more girly podcasts had like pink covers and whatever. And I wanted there to be a heart in it, and so I did that. And so I launched with that. But then I was thinking, I was like, I kind of feel like it's getting kind of old. It looks a little like I'm not really in love with it anymore. And so I was like, do I want to do a pink one again or what? And I was like, my favorite color is purple. So maybe I should just do purple. Maybe I should do like lavender or something a little more soft. So it's still girly, but it's still like, something that I really like. And so then I kept the heart design in there. So I took elements of it that I really liked
Yeah,
and I kind of added in elements that I personally would like. I was like, just because other people do a pink cover doesn't mean that I have to. So yeah, I don't remember how long it was. Like, I definitely kept it for a few months, but I don't remember how how much time had passed until I rebranded. But I think it was probably like 6 to 8 months after I launched that I
yeah,
was like, okay, we need to do a new style. And I don't really see me changing this anytime soon because I think I took a little more time with it. My first goal of releasing my podcast was just to get it out there. And so now I was like, okay, I can take more time on the cover art and just kind of try and pinpoint it a little more to what I would personally love.
yeah. Because I mean, if you think about the you that like came up with like the original one had never done a
Mhm.
podcast before, whereas like the
Yeah,
you who came up with the current one is the you that's doing the same thing now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I
It was super fun.
yeah, for sure. And like, do you kind of like how do you like plan out stuff? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you like a off the cuff kind of person, or do you like kind of like writing down and like
I do like to write down episodes, but sometimes I'll have this like stroke of inspiration or something that had happened that week, like happen, and then I'll be like, okay, we're shifting everything down, and we're gonna insert this one that I came up with this week because that's what's relevant and that's what's going on. Also, a lot of times it'll pair with the story of something that happened. Like I recently was going to do an episode about something that I was doing in school, but then I had this like spring break beach trip that I did. And then the episode I actually released today was about like perfection and trying to like chase like the Instagram, Pinterest life
Yeah.
versus like um how that like influences your decisions. Like long story short, I got really bad sunburn on that beach trip.
Yeah.
And I was like getting out in the sun being like, okay, it'll be fine as long as I get like just an even tan. And my sunburn was not even and it was just like really red and blah blah blah. And so I was like, okay, like I only now I know that I only really want to do stuff if it's gonna look pretty afterwards, which is not the way I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And so I just had that idea this week and I was like, all right, everything's shifting down because this is more relevant than what I was going to talk about. Also, I'm more into it. And if I like, I have a lot of episodes. I think I have everything until like May planned out. So if I waited until the end of May to do that episode, no one cares about spring break. And like, it's just kind
Yeah.
of like, oh yeah, so a few months ago, this happened. It's like, I want it to be like last week, this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a lot more relevant.
So like what's happening now? Yeah, for sure. And
Mhm.
what do you do in school?
I am a communications major. I'm actually going to graduate in like 2 months, so I'm really excited.
Sick. Awesome. And do you think that's like helped you kind of like get to where you are? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like, actually, when I was writing out my listener profile, I kind of based it off of an exercise that we did in one of my classes, where we took a brand that existed and then we tried to get their target audience. So we did demographic. We even did like how much money they make and like where they live and like their family life and all of that. Like we went super into detail and I haven't done that yet. But I was like, if a brand needs a target audience, so does my podcast and I can kind of, if people outside this demographic come in, that's totally fine. Everybody's welcome to listen. But at least I know the core group of who I'm
Yeah.
shooting to get as listeners. So that was really inspired by a class I did a couple semesters ago. So I was like, it's really been helping and I'm not sure what I'll do after graduation. I hope that I get to like do a bunch of writing and all that stuff for a company, but it definitely has helped my podcast. So I'm like whatever I do after graduation, like my degree has definitely helped what I'm doing as a podcaster.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, like you always have like the people who come in that are like just off the cuff. You know, like because I feel like there's
Mhm.
always like because I'm kind of like that as well. I like some stuff in general that like is completely unrelated to anything else that I like. I'm definitely not like the listener profile, if you know what I mean, for that
Uh-huh.
specific thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to always know what is your target listener because that's the people
Mhm.
who are gonna stick to you long term. You know.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of the same because I'm a music production like student, you know. So I feel like for me it
Cool.
influenced in a different way, you know. But I feel like communications is probably one of the best like majors you could have for like starting a
Mhm.
podcast pretty much because like I feel like
Yeah.
there's so much that like overlaps between those two things.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, and I took a design course a couple semesters ago as well. And that was just super like just the software that we use. I was like, I've never used this before, but now I know how. So if I ever wanted to use it, I would know how to do it. And I know we kind of did that whole target demographic in that class as well. Because we were supposed to create a company. And so I thought it was super interesting and something that could definitely carry over. I feel like a lot of my classes could carry over into like what I'm doing now with Salem E.
Yeah, for sure. Because like in a way, it's kind of like your own business, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because it's kind of
Fun.
like starting a business, but like kind of like what I was saying before, where you're selling the product. It's like you're selling you, you know, and like who knows
Uh-huh.
you better than you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I do get a little bit pressure because, like, if my life has looked kind of boring for like the past 2 weeks, I'm like, what am I going to podcast about? What stories do I have to tell?
Yeah,
So it is kind of like some pressure, but it definitely is super fun because I'm like, it's easier to put myself into a podcast than have to take like something that like a company and then having to like make content for them because I'm like, I know exactly what I like, so I
yeah.
can kind of see who all likes that and if that would be something that my listeners will be interested in. So,
For sure, yeah, no, for sure. I don't know. I always find it interesting to look at how other people like kind of approach this, you know, because I feel like there
mhm,
is no right way, you know, and there is no wrong way. And I'd say
yeah,
I'm pretty new to like podcasting in general, you know, but
mhm,
I feel like I have changed my kind of view a lot on like what I want to do, if you know what I mean, because I feel like that kind of like what you were saying. Like I feel like it's you get the tools for like what you're gonna do, with some like
Yeah.
communications or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that I'm gonna, grow and pivot some things and learn more things and kind of evolve from here. Like, I'm not just like, oh yeah, I've been podcasting for however long. Like, I'm all good. I'm gonna continue learning, and that's something that I'm really excited about. Especially, I'm kind of wondering how my podcast is gonna look after I graduate because I started it when I was in college.
Yeah,
So I'm like, wow, I have all the post grad to kind of, you know, think about what it's going to be. And also something interesting is I've been trying to pack in the college content like crazy because I will not be able to talk
yeah,
about
exactly.
like college as it's happening anymore. And I'm actually like graduation's just been on my mind like 24/7. So I'm like, I hope it's not too much, but this is my last chance to talk about this and to like give out the college, like story times, whatever. I can always do it in retrospect and that's fine, but I love doing stuff as it happens and all of that. So I was like, I hope people don't think I'm being too heavy-handed, but like I'd be interested in listening to this, so
Yeah,
hopefully they would be too.
but also I mean like it's interesting I think because like because of that people that kind of started watching you when you were in college, are gonna kind of like
Mhm.
grow with you, into like the next phase of your life
Yeah,
or whatever, because
yeah.
I know me anyways. Like it's the same thing with like music. I have music that I listen to a lot in a specific phase of my life, and I will always kind of
Mhm.
relate that music to that time and place.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting
Yeah.
to see like when you like watch something grow, if you know what I mean, to watch how it evolves and you kind of grow as a person with it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a nostalgic playlist. I have a college playlist, based on music that I listen to a lot in separate years, and so I can go and pinpoint. I've been adding to it the entire, time in college, and I can kind of see like where that song played in and why I was listening to that song, and whatever what year that came from. And there's even songs that I've heard like around college. Like I used to work at an office in our college. In my university, and there was a song that would be on the like loudspeaker, like radio thing, so much. So I
Yeah,
added it to my playlist. I was like, I heard the song in the Student Center all the time. And it's just going on my playlist because that's part of college. And so it is definitely interesting. I feel like music can kind of preserve moments and take you back to different times in your life. And hopefully those are good times. But even if they're bad times, it's kind of neat to think about, yeah, that's what I was listening to get
yeah.
over such and such.
Because it's like a marker of like that time and place, and it's weird because I
Hmm.
feel like nostalgia is such an interesting feeling because whenever you're like experiencing something and you're not nostalgic for it, you never
Hmm.
think of like, oh, when I listen to this in some time I'll remember now, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whenever I'm listening to like new music, for example, I never think like, oh, like in a few years when I listen back to this I'll remember this kind of time period.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not gonna be like, this is a song I remember forever, um, or
Yeah,
whatever. But yeah, it is kind of interesting because I feel like you can't necessarily create nostalgia even if you try, because I think a lot of
yeah,
people do try, and sometimes you can if you have like a movie night where you're like, I'm gonna watch this movie because it's really nostalgic to me. Like that's fine. But if you try and create a moment in time currently and you're like, I know I'm gonna remember this, it's like you
yeah.
might, but, like, that's just not how it works.
Oh yeah, because like I feel like life always has a way of surprising you. Like it's kind of like a lot of the best memories you have and the most memorable stuff you do is completely unexpected. You know?
Yeah, like, recently I went out with my sisters, and I was like, "This would be so nice to, like, do with a boyfriend or something." And so one of my sisters was like, "Yeah, but if you try and recreate moments
Yeah,
that you loved in the moment, it comes off as kinda weird, like, it comes off as not feeling quite right, so technically, you probably wouldn't feel like this. You would
yeah,
probably need to just have your own spontaneous thing with your boyfriend." So I was
yeah,
like, "Yeah, you're right."
yeah. Because I feel like if you went on that same like thing, but with like a boyfriend, whatever, it would be completely different.
Mhm, yeah.
And that experience. And I feel like that's interesting as well in music. I feel a lot of like artists kind of I don't know, not try to like conjure nostalgia, but kind of try to like harken back to like a different time and a different whatever. And I always
Mhm.
find it interesting that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Like I actually think Avril Lavigne's new song "Bite Me," it was I felt like it was like kind of old, like how she started out. It sounded kind of
Yeah,
like that. Um, so I thought I don't know if she was trying to create it, but I was like, I could see this being, the complicated era of Avril Lavigne. Um, so I thought that that was kind of cool. But I feel like if you consciously try and create it, sometimes it works, but sometimes, most of the time, I would say it doesn't.
yeah.
Unless you really know what you're doing. Um,
Yeah, because
which
I think there's like kind of like two extremes you can be at. Either you can like do something like really memorable and like
Mhm.
crazy, like good, out of just like stumbling upon it by accident, or you're like so good that you can get to that like calculator, you know. But I feel like if you're not
Yeah.
at that level, like it's not gonna be good. I'm not saying for everyone, you know, but obviously like
Mhm.
from what I've heard, that is.
Yeah, like, something I liked was when Taylor Swift is re-releasing her old music, she re-released Fearless, which is in, like, 2008 or something, or 9. I was so glad with the cover art and everything. She wasn't, like, in a curly wig, like, trying to be her 18-year-old self. She was like, "This is me as however old she is, as a woman, and this is like my version of Fearless." And then her merch, the way she did her merch, she didn't necessarily like try and pose the same way or have the same kind of artwork or whatever. She took photos from that tour and put them on t-shirts
That's
and kind
awesome.
of
Yeah.
like, but branded it in a way that's like the modern Fearless, not the 2008 Fearless. And then she took photos that were just like her now. And I thought that was super cool. And I was super glad that she wasn't trying to make it, because it was nostalgic, the album, but like it wasn't supposed to be like, pretend that never happened. This is actually
Yeah,
Fearless,
yeah, yeah.
and I was like,
This is what that was meant to be. Yeah, no, I know. Because I feel
yeah.
like that's always kind of a pitfall that a lot of artists can fall into, and a lot of times do, which is when you're like redoing something or calling back to something that you did before. How far
Hmm.
can you go until it's like just like a remaster, of
Yeah, and it's like kind
the
of
old thing?
cheap, and I'm just like, I know what you're trying to do. Like maybe, like that's why like she did how she did the vault songs. So she does like bonus songs with each album. I like that because it's what she wrote when she was writing the album, but it's also new. So it doesn't seem like
Yeah,
it's like a cheap remake of Fearless. It's kind of like you're giving us something new as well. And you're
yeah,
also giving us like a fuller sound and more like quality, but you're not really trying to like pull the nostalgia card, because I feel like all these movie remakes of classics, I
yeah,
don't love that people are doing that, because you are supposed to be nostalgic. Like I know they did an I Love Lucy movie, and I love Lucy. But then they were gonna like run her and tell her actual story, and I was like, I don't want you to run her. I don't want her to like have, gone through a
yeah.
divorce or something and have her and Ricky be arguing. I'm like, for me that's not nostalgic. That's like just sad.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like whenever you're doing, especially like yeah, movie remakes are definitely like big, not an issue, but I feel like if you're making a remake of a movie, it has to be at least as good as the original, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's like I can just watch the original, because
Yeah,
it's
and
kind of
I
like
feel like,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say because it's kind of like with the Fearless album, for example. Like if it was like the old Fearless and the new Fearless were like very close together, very similar. You like as a fan would probably just be like, I can just listen to the old one. Like why would I listen to
Mhm.
this new one?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like consumers see right through that. A lot of times, if I see a commercial or something of a remake, I'm like, it's just a money grab. You're just trying to profit off of people's nostalgia for the old movies.
Yeah,
And most of the time it doesn't work, especially if it's been like 10 years since you did like the first one, and then all of a sudden it's a sequel. I'm like, I don't really like, sometimes you can pull it off, but most of the time,
mm.
not really.
I feel like it goes back to the thing of being genuine because I feel like if you do it from a genuine place of like, no, like I think this movie needs a sequel. I think that like this isn't like finished or whatever, it's always
Hmm.
gonna be like the people who watch the movie are also gonna be like, yeah, like that's like let me see what that'd be like because it's like there's movies that I love, but I wouldn't necessarily want to see a sequel of. Like I wouldn't want a new Back to the Future to come out necessarily, not because I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to see it, but just because like I don't want them to make it just for the sake of making it, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah, and something that I thought was actually pulled off pretty well was the Harry Potter reunion.
Yeah.
because it wasn't like I don't love the whole like Fantastic Beast thing because it felt kind of knockoff, like no one
Yeah, it's
really
kind of like, oh, it's Harry
cares.
Potter, but it's not Harry Potter. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did like the reunion because it, I think, I don't, was it 10 years? Yeah, I think it's been 10 years. They didn't do like a 5 year, 3 year, something like really close, but it was super interesting to see all the cast come back to the set, kind of like the Friends reunion as well.
Yeah.
Like, it is a lot of nostalgia, but it's good nostalgia because it's showing the actors and it's also showing the just like their perspective on it. It's not like they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do a new season of Friends." It's like that would be very strange to watch and whatever. But I really like seeing the behind the scenes of the actors coming back and hearing about how their perspective on the show is now and stuff like that. So I like reunion stuff as long as it hasn't been like, you know, the 2 year reunion. You're like, no one cares.
Yeah, it's like it's been
But
two
like 10
years. Like,
years, yeah, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Like I think that they've waited it out, you know,
yeah.
enough time.
Because even like with the Friends reunion, for example, I think it's interesting how they like look back at like different episodes and talked about like how it was recorded and stuff. Because that
Mhm.
gives fans like a
Yeah.
different perspective, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because no, yeah, same. Because I feel like if they were to release like a new season of something like that, it would just be kind of making it for the sake of making it, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And like I like how they said the lines and different stuff. Um but it's not like they're trying to make an entire show of it, you know. Everyone wants to hear like Lisa Kudrow go like my eyes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they don't want a whole episode or a whole
That was a great
season. They
impression, by the
just,
way.
thanks.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like even with like the Friends reunion, I feel like it shows you like that it shows why it wouldn't work if they made a new season. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because with a lot of old
Yeah.
things like that, like in a way, it's kind of sad to watch the reunion because it kind of takes the characters and everything out of the like that time capsule of like they'll always be in that state. But it also
Yeah.
presents you to reality of like, yeah, like if they made a new one, this is what it would be like. It just wouldn't be the
Mhm.
same thing as it was before, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like if you wait long enough, you get to also introduce the aspect of like this is the impact that your show or your movie or your books have had on people. And I feel like the more successful reunions add that in, like the Harry Potter one, the Friends one, they all talked about how much of an impact it has had on basically the world.
Mm,
So I thought that that's cool because they kind of acknowledge the nostalgia. When
yeah.
people try to ignore it and it's like, "No, we're not making it because people like it. We're making it because like, it needs another one." It's like, "No, you're making it because
Yeah.
people like it."
Yeah, literally, yeah. Like you're making it because people want to see it, but the thing is, sometimes people don't know what they want. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people, and it's the same with like music, for example. If you ask a lot of people who are fans of a certain artist, they would be like, "No, I want them to release a new such and such album," you know. But it's like, no, you don't want that, you know.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. I think we're gonna have to leave it at here because it's getting quite long. But it was amazing having you on,
Yeah, thank you so
and
much for inviting me.
yeah, and hopefully you'll come back one of these days.
Sure. Be
Yeah,
down.
and your podcast is gonna be linked down below with all of your
Thank you.
all of your socials. I know you're not a big fan of social media,
Mm,
but your Pinterest,
socials.
your socials exactly. And yeah, go check out. It's top notch. Um,
Thank you.
but yeah, I will see you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.